Coming to you from the internet, it's Comic Picks by the Glicks.
Hey, I'm your host, Jason Glick.
Hey, Jason Glick, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine, John. How about yourself?
Still getting over the internet thing I just said, so...
Yeah, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Yes, I should be, you know. Hey, what else is new?
Well, it's like I'm preparing for Black Friday. It's like on the holiday weekend, especially with all the video game stuff. But hey, it happens to be so that we got a podcast for this week, and it's going to be about comics instead of just video games and all.
Yes, so true, so true.
Yeah. So this week's subject is a series called Ikigami from Viz's signature line up their line for seinen manga, and I would not be talking about it this week if it was not for a buddy of mine who actually went and got me restarted on this series. Just want to say, just welcome to my good buddy Michael Stretton.
Hello.
Hey, Michael, how are you doing?
Doing all right.
Great.
Oh.
Good.
Cool.
Sounds like you're going to have some interesting comments for us this time.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Yeah, because let me give you a bit of background here, because this is a series that I picked up the first two volumes like years ago, and then I thought it was all right, but not necessarily something I was particularly compelled about to pick up like immediately after buying those. So I just put it on my Amazon wish list, and there it sat for years and years and years. And then like earlier this year, around birthday time, Michael got me the next 4 volumes, like right out of the blue, right there.
What a great guy,
Michael.
And well, how did you enjoy the rest of the series?
Okay, well, it's like we're talking about it right now. So if nothing else, I would like to thank you for giving me great fodder for this current podcast right now.
Coolness.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
He's like, I have material. Sweet.
Yeah, because the last time I invited a buddy of mine to talk about a series. It was Steve when we talked about Future Diary, and I started this off by asking Steve if we were still friends, based on the fact that that series was not objectively good. It was entertaining, but it was also consistent. But it was also objectively terrible. But it was terrible in new and interesting ways. Ikigami is a it's a much different beast than that. So let me talk about the basic setup for this series. And the series is kind of coy in its setting and time, but it's basically they're talking about it takes place in a country in the present day where where in order to promote national welfare and the value of life, and to make citizens appreciate what they have, the society in Ikigami has this program called national welfare, where where when kids are inoculated at an early age, they're also given 1 in 1,000 is injected with a capsule that will kill them once they reach their 20s or so. And what's the whole point of this? To make them appreciate what they have, to spur them on into making greater and bigger and greater things, knowing that they may die, just before a certain time. Did I get that right, Michael?
Yeah, that's about right. I believe it starts at 18 and it's early 20s when the cutoff is. So sometime in their very early, right after high school, essentially, for U.S. teen children.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing, so the series basically tracks the exploits of one of the delivery men who delivers the Ikigami, or the death notices, to the to the particular individuals, and it essentially, we're just basically shown how do these people respond to their fates, because if you're a good person, if you're a good little citizen, and you take your death in stride, your family get a national bereavement pension, and you will be classified as a national welfare hero. Now, then there are those who basically who will die who vis-a-vis their imminent death as a license to go and take revenge against those who have done them wrong, and they're kind of like seeing their families are denied their bereavement pension. They're forced to pay restitution to those who have been wronged by the person who served the Ikigami, and usually they're ostracized because that's how Japan rolls. Now, that's the thing.
And they pay a fine.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, it's all sorts of bad things right there. Now, it's certainly a compelling setup for a series, but the mangaka Motoro Mase, well, there are certain issues with the execution. First and foremost is and I'll just get this right now, and that's the fact that it beggars belief why a country would submit themselves to something like this, to the random killing of random citizens. It's like without without capitulation. I mean, okay, yeah, it was mentioned, that there were some protests earlier, but just like the random taking of human life just seems like something that no one would be able to stomach.
One of the things that I wish the author would do more of is there seems to be 3 lines of plot in the comic. First is the obvious, which is the individual deliveries of the Ikigami that the main character does. And the second line is his changing attitudes, both for and against the national welfare, that go in and out. And then there's this sort of, we get little glimpses of backstory. And in part of the backstory it says that it gives 2 reasons. One, it was part of a treaty out of some war, which I believe is in Volume 4,
yeah, don't worry about the page numbers right there. But I mean,
page 33.
Yeah,
but at any rate, that it came out of a war, and the second little clue that it gives, and this is something that I wish the author would provide more information on, but that it was backed up by a secret police that switched over from a hated part of the old regime pre-war to the National Welfare Division or Department post-war. And so you have secret police killing off, because they either reform them, as is seen with the psychologist, or they deposit them with a pill, which is mentioned time and time again through the series, but never actually shown, I don't think. At least I don't remember seeing it.
Indeed, and a lot of the stuff is very analogous to yes, the series, the country itself is never named, but it's it's obviously Japan, and while they're talking about there's our national ally, and it's obviously the U.S. and this treaty from years ago they're talking about is obviously the end of World War II. I mean, even the time frame they give is right, and the fact that the secret police would migrate into the new government, it's really not an inconceivable setup right there. But at the same time, though, it's like I said, it's the Mase, the mangaka, doesn't really offer a whole lot of explanations to, or explanations to why the citizenship would just would roll over on this, But and so that's kind of something that really does stick in your craw throughout the series, and what's not helped is by the other main issue in this series. That's because that's the issues, the stories of the people who receive the Ikigami themselves. Mainly because Mase really likes to use these things as kind of a issue of the week type thing. I mean, you've got, the initial story starts off with a guy who was bullied as a high school kid, and once he gets his Ikigami, he realizes, okay, no, I'm going to make those people I'm going to make those people suffer like I did. And he does, but he realizes that, vengeance isn't as fulfilling as he wanted to, but he gets kind of like he reaches kind of like a personal, equilibrium when he talks to this one kid who was bullied and urges him to just, stand up for himself, against his bullies now, or else he'll wind up like him later. But also in the same volume, we get a story about the merits of selling out versus remaining true to yourself in music, and that's really kind of just a little bit ridiculous. I mean, okay, going on. I mean, let's see, because going on from there, we've got also ones where you got the politician, the female politician who neglects her son. He gets an Ikigami. He realizes, oh, I'm going to use this, finally show my mom what I really think of her after all these years. There's also the street racer whose wife gets an Ikigami, and he's never been able to mature as an adult. And so she realizes, oh, my husband's never going to mature as an adult, so I'm going to have my daughter sent off to another country in order so that she won't be able to get inoculized. And they just keep getting more and more ridiculous up until the most recent volume, where you get this one guy who was fighting in World War II, and the cycle of karma and retribution that hey, because oh god, Michael, you have to keep me straight on this, but okay, because this guy, he was during World War II, he was actually about to kill a prisoner of war, but he couldn't do it because he just stopped right at the very end and pissed his pants. Then the other guy behind him, was able to do it, but then he was hanged as a war criminal for the act. Yeah, later, after the war. But then their kids, the guy who pissed his pants, his son winds up moving up one space in line after the guy whose grandfather was killed wets his pants in line. And so it turns out the kid who didn't wet his pants and moved up in line, he gets the nanocapsule that kills him, and it's it's this horrible cycle of vengeance and karma, and it's oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah. So Michael, I mean, what's your take on all this right here? It's am I just being too harsh on this, or
I think. I think part of the problem is he's not developing the background story enough. He's not doing what was done in Uku, where I think it was the second volume and third volume, where they tell the entire backstory. They hook you with the first volume of, wow, this is a really engaging story about what would happen if all the men died in medieval Japan, and then they tell you how they got that way. Ikigami has been feeding it out by little spoonfuls that are very vague and just give you little pieces of it. And it kind of your criticism is kind of right on, because he's not dishing out enough of these morsels about how it came to be this way. We've just gotten a little bit.
Yeah, I know what you mean right there. Of course, I think that part of the reason that he hasn't gone into the story of how this society came to be is because there is no satisfactory explanation. I mean, I've got my theory. My theory about this is that the delivery man. We'll come back to him later because he's probably his story is probably the most solid part of the series. But I figure that once he or someone else starts the revolution that basically overthrows the current regime which supports national welfare, that once he does this and he overcomes this, he's going to either find someone who tells him this, or he'll find a box with a message that tells him the exact same thing, basically saying that that the people who set up national welfare saying, we know this is a terrible system, we know it's against human rights and human dignity and all. But the reason we did it is basically to make our nation stronger, because we wanted to forge a nation where people who would fight to overthrow this unjust regime, and they would emerge as a stronger people. So all this national welfare bullshit is just like the plot of, it's just like some great social engineering plot in order to make people stronger and all in the end. So that's the only reason I can think of for why this whole situation makes any sense.
Well, what if it's a worse possibility, and it really was just some treaty that a foreign power imposed? I think that would be a less satisfying answer, but the one he seems to be dishing out that okay, these people are rising against a foreign power oppressor, except the foreign power doesn't seem to be the oppressor here. It seems to be their own people oppressing themselves.
Okay, I can see what you're saying right there. Part of me thinks that it can't even if it can't be that if that's the direction the author is going, it can't be that simple because there has to be a twist in here. Like the author realizes that it can't. I mean, even with all of the stories that he's done so far, there's always been some sort of twist in them that that keeps them from thinking it's just just a straight up simple he's gonna die, he does something, the end. I think that there has to be some sort of twist from what we're seeing here. That's why I think what I'm thinking, why I think the problem is. I mean, why I think my theory is right in this case. Otherwise, what you're saying, it'd be interesting if they were if that was the case, because that would give Ikigami a really nationalistic bent, which I really don't think that I could go for, mainly because Japan's nationalism at this point is not something that I think is really any good for anyone right now.
Yeah, well, there's always been a theme of questioning whether they should overturn certain parts of the military restrictions and nuclear weapons restrictions. I mean, you've seen that in Pat Labor.
Yeah.
And this kind of has a Jinro bend to it, except for it doesn't have the nicely decked out Panzer Corps that are so nice to look at.
Indeed.
This is sort of we're going to enforce national
welfare.
Well, I was going to say
national pride,
homogenization through having people be injected with pills with their kindergarten shots, their immunizations, rather than by stormtroopers that look kind of like wolves.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying right there. I mean, and yeah, on one hand, it is more subtle than that, even though that there are lots of there's a lot of unsubtle, glaringly unsubtle, thought police stuff going on in
Except
here.
we never see them.
Well, remember at the I reread the first volume earlier today, and you've got that one guy at the at Fujimoto, the messenger's first day on the job, and he's like, and this guy is starts going off during the introductory meeting, saying what? It's like this national welfare is a crime. How can we agree to something like this? And then then the guys in the biohazard suits show up and haul him back off. And that's, like I said, when I say glaringly unsubtle thought police stuff, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about right there.
Okay, point taken.
I do think that Mase has kind of dialed that stuff back a bit. This is early on and hasn't done anything as crazy. I mean, the only thing he's really done towards that is the stuff with the messenger and the people who are watching him in the later volumes, and his encounter with the psychologist who at first was first thought to be just evaluating him for thought crimes, or crimes against thinking against social welfare. But then we find out that hey, she's actually one of the dissidents, and then we find she's been re-educated later on. So
and the main character tells on her, which is a twist in and of itself, because they keep going along and along and along about him slowly going off the rails, and then he tells on her.
Yeah, I mean, if Ikigami has its strongest point is the messenger's rationalizations of how he deals with his job, and him. He's basically like, for lack of a better term, for the majority of the series so far, he's basically been like, the face of the banality of evil in this series. He is like he's doing his job to the best of his abilities, but at the same time, he's got his doubts and everything up and his portrayal, in contrast to a lot of the message of the week stories, is actually pretty nuanced in the sense that he doesn't suddenly wake up one day and realize, oh, no, I'm going to go up against social welfare. It's like this is like a very gradual process that happens to him throughout the 9 volumes that have been published so far, to the point where he has his big epiphany in front of the internet cafe, and you think, okay, this actually makes sense. I can believe what he's doing right now after everything I've seen of him up to this point.
Even if you don't necessarily buy the setup, which it would be nice if the author fleshed that out more. I do think that line of the story plot really needs to be developed. It'd be nice if he did somehow something like they did in Uku, where the author took a couple volumes and fleshed out the backstory of how things came to be this way.
Indeed, but at the same time, though, it's like fleshing out the story of how Japan came back from a plague that decimated its male population. That's a much more for lack of a better term, like it's it requires the fact that it happens requires a suspension of disbelief, but the reconstruction from that point does not. It actually it's actually pretty. It can actually be pretty sensible and pretty logical, as Fumio Yoshinaga does. Problem is, as I said before, I don't think we're going to see this with Ikigami because the setup is just so far out there that to try and dig into the actual reasons of why it happened is not feasible. It would just explain any attempt to explain this setup any further than we've already seen would probably break the series, for lack of a better term. That's what I think. So, I mean, I will say, even though I feel like I'm really very hard on this series. I mean, I will say that, even its message of the week stuff is kind of entertaining to a certain extent, in how earnest it is. I mean, yes, a lot of it is kind of ridiculously melodramatic and over the top, but if you can buy into that stuff, then yeah, it's like I said, it's entertaining to a certain point. Plus, there are those times when Mase does play with the with your expectations a bit, and particularly the point where we get one kid who he's born into a family. He's part of a family who is big into social welfare, and they're talking about how the biggest honor. They're always big on how the biggest honor you can receive is to get an Ikigami. And while this kid, he's still is the final year of high school. He's going to he's just not going to go anywhere because he's not doing well on his tests. He's just kind of floundering in school, even though he's big into the whole social welfare thing. He gets this Ikigami, and then everything just falls apart for him. It is terrible to watch for this guy, but at the same time, it's fun to see it, in the sense how it plays with your expectations.
Well, and the interesting part is part of what gets him into trouble is somebody badmouths him, which you're supposedly not supposed to do, to national heroes who die for the country by virtue of this pill that they've been injected with, and he threatens to tell on him, and he finds out his entire class is against him, so he's going to tell on all of them, and it ends up into this huge brawl, which he becomes involved in as much as anyone else, which makes him a criminal because he's assaulting people, and his own father has to take him down as part of
his father has to put the cuffs on him.
Yeah, and by putting the cuffs, the father knows that he's going to be ashamed not only to the local community, but because he works for this is one of the few times we actually get to see the National Welfare Police, the ones who would otherwise be in Panzer uniforms, but for some reason are not so generously decked out. This is one of the few times we actually get to see them, other than the first volume, and he puts the cuffs on, and this means rejection from the very Panzer Corps that he's operating under to take his son down.
Indeed, and we need more. Like I said, we need more stories like this. Would certainly be nice. And we get something kind of like that. I mean, you were telling me before I got these volumes that the story about the pediatrician, or like the nurse and the doctor who was injecting these kids with their immunizations. I mean, like that. Yeah, that's another story where it kind of like plays with your expectations a bit.
He defends the national welfare by injecting himself in order to show all the kids that it's really safe. So he injects himself with, I don't remember how many different injections, but it was a lot.
I think it's like three or four, to the point where I think he gets, I can't remember if it's like, his chances to get one of these capsules becomes 1 in 133 or 1 in 125. Even though it's like it's kind of, the point is like, it's kind of diluted when you realize that, okay, this guy's like probably pushing her past 50 as it is. So he'll have already lived a full life by the time these capsules kick in, if they ever do.
It's not really the level playing field then.
Yeah, but his actions do lead someplace else, right, Michael?
Right. The parents end up asking him to become the face of, he becomes a national welfare hero of sorts, and the parents ask him to become the face of the resistance, which is interesting. But because the doctor himself had a bad feeling about doing the injections in the first place, because he injected a boy who actually did die, and he felt it was against his Hippocratic oath, but he was doing it anyways. And so he already had a sort of moral objection that was playing at his mind, and these parents were able to drag him the rest of the way after the nurse had this episode where she brought back the fact that the pediatrician had, in a way, killed a boy by injecting him with the capsule earlier in his youth. If I remember correctly, she had some kind of
she was like a premature birth,
right?
So.
And would have otherwise been killed, and that was an issue for which she was very passionate about, and that kind of merged with, because she got the Ikigami, that became a source of hate for her for the Ikigami, because she equated it with the kind of abortions that she was seeing happening of other premature babies.
Yeah, I mean, like her reward for struggling as a kid to survive was only to die to die early. So yeah, it's something like I said, the series definitely has its moments. It has its heart in the right place. I mean, if you take it as a kind of like an underdog trying to overthrow the the evil government or evil empire for such as it is, then yeah, it's like it kind of works. If you're trying to take it as serious social commentary, then it's about as heavy-handed and believable as your average TV movie of the week, or at least as they used to have TV movies of the week back in the day, back when I was growing up. God, I feel old. Okay.
Don't we all?
Movie of the week? What's that?
Yeah. So like I said, it's Ikigami. It certainly has issues, but it is kind of interesting in a broad sense, for lack of a better term. It gave me stuff to talk about, so I can appreciate it. Michael, any final thoughts on this?
I'd say that you'd want to read it for the main character. The episode of the week is probably the least important aspect of it. There are some stories that it took me a long time before I could read through them, because I didn't really like the particular plot of individual episodes. But the parts that followed what was going on with the society and what was going on with the main character. Those are very interesting.
Indeed. So some of it's just like almost too ridiculous for you as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'd agree with that.
Cool. Okay, John. Any thoughts on your end?
No, it's interesting, and I guess it's an interesting concept. I guess I'd have to just read it to figure out if I think that it's a viable one, though.
All right. Well, you can pick it up on you can pick it up in print and on Enviz apparently has gone completely digital as well. So you can pick it up so that you can get it online from their site as well. The series is 9 volumes in print so far. Volume 10 is out in Japan at the moment, and Amazon has it arriving in August of next year. So this is another one of those annualized series that I talk about every so often, like Oku, Berserk, and the like. So overall, that's all we got here. And so Michael, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. And next time we're still sticking with manga because after 4 or 5 years now, Takehiko Inoue's legendary basketball epic Slam Dunk finally reaches its conclusion. So I'll be back to talk about that. All 31 volumes of that, which I'm expecting to equate to Japan's answer to Rocky next time.
All right, we'll catch you next time on Comic Picks by the Glick.
All right, laters.
Bye.